I worked the haunted night shift at a gas station in Montana. The rules may cost me my life. I never should have opened that door. The first night shift at that gas station felt like stepping into a ghost story. The flickering neon sign cast eerie shadows across the cracked pavement. I looked over my shoulder, feeling that familiar chill creeping down my spine. In the dead of night, the silence was loud and suffocating. Just me, the cold, and the overwhelming darkness. I poured coffee with trembling hands, the bitter scent mixing with the night air. The rumble of the distant highway was my only company, but it wasn't long before the horror began. A whisper slithered through the walls. Was it the wind or something else? My heart raced. Shadows danced just beyond the reach of the dim lights. Then it happened. A jar on the shelf rattled, sending a spike of dread straight through me. The hairs on my arms stood up as the sound echoed like a warning. The temperature dropped, a bone-deep chill wrapping around me. I thought I heard a voice, soft but urgent, drifting past. Get out! I tried to shake it off. Workers at the station had told me stories about strange occurrences. Lights flickering, doors slamming shut, customers seeing things that weren't there. They laughed it off, but the tension was palpable. Every sound grew more pronounced: the creaking of the floor, the rustle of the leaves outside. I glanced at the security monitor. Empty, yet I could feel eyes on me. An unshakable sensation like fingers brushing my neck. I clenched my fists, adrenaline coursing through me. A sudden bang echoed from the back room. My pulse thundered in my ears as I approached the door. My breath hitched. Should I run? Should I find out? A part of me knew I shouldn't open it. Yet curiosity clawed at me, a moth to a flame. My hand hovered over the doorknob, cold sweat pooling at the base of my spine. I took a deep breath, pushing aside the dread. Just a quick peek. I turned it slowly. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A flicker, a shadow darting across the wall. I gasped, heart pounding like a war drum. Then, everything went silent. The darkness felt thicker. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, panic flooding my veins. A shape loomed in the corner, impossibly tall and shrouded in shadows. I couldn't scream. I stood frozen, eyes wide, breath caught in my throat. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air crackled with an electric tension, as if the very atmosphere was anticipating what was about to unfold. The figure in the corner shifted, the shadows around it pulsating like a living entity. I could barely comprehend its form, grotesquely elongated limbs twisted at angles that defied reason. It loomed, silent and still, yet I could feel its gaze piercing through the gloom, evaluating, judging. Every instinct screamed for me to retreat, but I was paralyzed, caught in a nightmare where the rules of reality seemed to dissolve. The darkness whispered, a chorus of fragmented voices echoing in my mind. Help us, one pleaded, but the sound morphed into a cacophony of cries, distorted, desperate. Each plea tugged at something deep within me, igniting a spark of unresolved torment. I was no longer alone. The anguish of long-forgotten souls pressed in around me, suffocating and relentless. Suddenly, the figure began to move, a slow, deliberate pace toward me. I stumbled back, my heels scratching against the linoleum floor, but I was trapped in this claustrophobic space, no escape in sight. The air thickened, turning viscous, as if the very act of breathing was a betrayal to the malevolence looming before me. Get out, it whispered again, this time more intimately, with a voice that dripped with sorrow like melting wax. I could see its face mottled and sunken, features twisted into an expression of pure anguish. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs as if it wanted to claw its way out. In a frenzy, I whipped around the small room, seeking something, anything, to defend myself, my eyes darting to the shelves lining the walls. There! A baseball bat, left behind by one of the day crew. I lunged for it, fingers wrapping around the smooth, cold wood. As I turned back, the creature was closer now, its breath a foul stench, a mixture of decay and despair. Help, it echoed, but its voice was a deception, seeping into my mind like poison. I raised the bat, heart racing, trembling with terror as the dark abyss threatened to consume me whole, but just as I swung, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. My world turned upside down, spiraling into a chasm of pure dread. I swung blindly, connecting with something solid, and a bone-chilling screech filled the void. I had no idea if I struck the creature or just a wall, but the sound resonated with anguish that and the eerie silence that followed, the shadows shifted ominously, swirling like a tempest. You shouldn't have come here, the voice groaned, now a distorted chorus, echoing from every corner of the room. The walls seemed to pulse, closing in on me, pulsing with energy, as if they were alive. That I turned to flee, my feet racing, but the door was no longer where I remembered. I was trapped in an endless maze of darkness and despair. I could hear the whispers sharpening into screams, each a shard of fear cutting through the atmosphere. You're one of us now then, a crackling sound halted me in my tracks. I turned, and there on the wall my own reflection stared back, but not quite right. Blood trickled from its eyes, its mouth twisted in a mocking grin. I gasped and stumbled back, but the wall absorbed my movement, the reflection moving as if it were a living entity. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath my feet and shadowy figures began to emerge from the walls, their forms morphing into indistinguishable nightmares. I swung the bat again, desperation clawing at my throat, but it felt like hitting smoke. With each attempt, the shadows grew closer, converging with sickening fluidity. Then, just as I thought I would be swallowed whole, a flash of light erupted, illuminating the room. I could see the faces twisted, anguished faces surrounded me, their mouths open wide in silent screams. My heart dropped into my stomach. What do you want? I shrieked that as if in response, the light flickered and died, plunging me back into darkness. The whispers grew louder, drowning me in a sea of despair. Join us, and then, in the suffocating gloom, something cold gripped my ankle. I screamed, and the darkness swallowed the sound. The chill crept up my spine, wrapping around me like a cold hand. My heart raced, pounding in rhythm with the suffocating whispers that coiled around my mind. The grip on my ankle tightened, and I felt myself being tugged, drawn down into the inky abyss that seemed to breathe as if it possessed a life of its own. I jerked my leg free, stumbling backward, adrenaline setting my nerves ablaze. But the shadows were relentless. They slithered across the floor, whispering my name in voices laced with venomous sweetness, like the song of a siren leading me to my doom. The faces etched into the walls twisted agonizingly, their eyes pleading and accusing, as if I had broken some unspoken covenant by entering their domain. Just then, I spotted movementa flicker in the oppressive darkness. I turned, heart hammering, towards the source when I saw it, a flickering neon sign outside, bathing the room in a sickly green glow. It pulsated rhythmically, in and out, like a dying heartbeat, illuminating the outline of the gas station, its windows dark and empty, mocking my futile attempts to escape. The grotesque shapes danced to the rhythm of the flickering light, their forms briefly revealed in strobing bursts that reeked of despair. That I let out a frenzied gasp, seizing the moment to dart toward the door, but it suddenly slammed shut before I could reach it. The force vibrated through me, thunderous and final. Let me out! I screamed, banging on the door with my fists, the sound reverberating back at me, a hollow echo. Yet instead of answering, it felt like the building itself was leaning in, pressing closer, eager to hear my fear. The whispers intensified, almost forming a coherent language now, threading through the air with slimy fingers. We were all once like you. Now we are forever trapped. They wrapped around me like chains. I turned back to the sallow figure in the corner. It had moved again, drawn to my chest of terror. The torment that radiated from it merged with the despair of the others. They were all one now, a singular vibrating entity of pain and longing. please, I breathed, my voice cracking, what do you want from me? In a grotesque imitation of human empathy, the figure stepped forward, the shadows shivering away from its ghastly form. My stomach turned as I beheld its eye sockets dark, endless voids that seemed to echo the very depths of suffering. We want release, it chirped, the voice now disjointed, breaking apart like glass, shattering shards of sound piercing the thick atmosphere, each slice of noise echoing my mortality. The room began to whirl, a dizzying ballet of darkness and light, death and life, and I grasped at the bat in desperation. Release from what? But with each syllable, the entity grew closer, its presence suffocating, the air thickening around me like syrup. Join us, it breathed, a sickening scent of rot and sorrow wafting from its form, invading my nostrils and overpowering my senses. Become one of us and know true freedom. No. I screamed, shaking my head violently. My legs trembled beneath me, but instinct kicked in, and I turned, ready to break through the door once again. As I lunged, I heard them transform into wails of anguish, the cacophony ripping at the fibers of my resolve. I reached for the handle, willing it to turn, praying that the promises of freedom were not just a ploy to entrap me further. But suddenly, a deafening roar filled the air as the lights above shattered, raining sparks upon the floor. I staggered back, groping for the bat once more, but it slipped from my hands, clattering uselessly to the ground as the shadows surged, advancing like tidal waves. In that split second of horror, a figure with glowing, ghostly eyes emerged from the depths of the shadows. Familiarity swept over me, a hideous visage of someone I had lost. Help me, it whispered, echoing my own anguish, its mouth twitching in a way that shattered my sanity. Time froze. My chest tightened with a tragic understanding. I didn't know whether it was the ghosts clamoring for my sanity or the wrenching truth of my own memories pulling me closer. But the specter reached out, its skeletal fingers brushing against my skin, leaving trails of fire and ice. Was this the release they sought, their path to freedom becoming my damnation? In horror, I faltered. Then, with a deep breath that tasted of ash, I pushed forward. The specter's scream pierced through the darkness, mingling with the howls of tortured souls as reality warped around me, merging and collapsing into an unrecognizable nightmare. With one final desperate push, I flung myself against the door and it swung wide open, but what lay beyond froze the blood in my veins. The gas station was gone, replaced by a vortex of shifting darkness that spun like an infinite well of despair. And as I gazed into its abyss, 1,000 pairs of eyes began to blink open, staring back hungry, waiting. And just when I thought hope flickered in the distance, the gas station snapped back into view, horribly intact, the door slamming shut behind me, locking my fate within. Welcome home, the darkness echoed, the voice dripping with malice and anticipation. The room pulsed with an unnatural energy, the walls throbbing as if they had taken a breath of their own. I couldn't help but look back at the door, now unyielding like a dam against the storm. Its surface warped around the edges, blurred by whatever force held it closed. A thick, viscous fog began to seep out from the cracks, filling the air with the sickening smell of decay. Each inhalation felt like a blade scraping against my throat. Welcome home. The voice echoed again, echoing laughter creeping into the ominous atmosphere, licking at the corners of my sanity. I turned, my every instinct screaming for me to run, but there was nothing but the relentless darkness closing in around me. My heart thundered, the sound swallowed by the growls of the shadows, like beasts lurking, eager to chip away at my resolve. Show yourself. I shouted, my voice trembling despite the bravado. The shadows quivered in response, coalescing into a shape that struck terror deeper than any nightmare. A mass of twisted faces and contorted bodies emerged, weaving into one grotesque tapestry of agony. Their mouths opened, but instead of sound, a throbbing silence seeped from the man, unending dirge of despair that gnawed at the very essence of my being. Suddenly, the figure with ghastly eyes appeared in the center of the chaos, its features sharpening as if the shadows had painstakingly crafted it. You don't remember me, it cawed, but I knew the cadence, the tones wrenched from grief and suffering. An overwhelming sense of recognition barreled into me, piercing through my dread like a blade. It was my mother, once so vibrant, now a reflection of sorrow. Mom. I whispered, disbelief stealing my breath. I took a cautious step toward her, the warmth of memories tugging at my heart. What happened to you? I thought you were gone. Her image flickered, oscillating between familiarity and grotesque distortion. Everyone leaves, my dear. Tears pooled in her hollows, rolling down cheekbones sharp as knives. But the darkest truths never die. They linger, waiting for souls to feed on. The shadows crept closer, swallowing the space between us, while the coldness of her words wrapped around my heart, tightening like a vice. You shouldn't have come back, she mourned, her voice dripping with despair. We cannot escape this place. It hungers for blood. No. I will find a way out. My words felt feeble as they escaped my lips. I won't join you or anyone else, but with every refusal, the shadows bulked, becoming a living maw that gaped wide with anticipation. The cacophony of lost voices rose in a crescendo, the cries piercing through my skull. Join us before it's too late. The whispers aren't lies, they are your salvation. The room shifted, violently rocking around me. The fluorescent lights above flickered back to life, blindingly bright, illuminating messes of spilled oil and dust, scars that whispered stories absorbed by the hard concrete. Through the haze, a singular shadow split from the mass, forming into a human shape, moving deftly amongst chaos. I squinted, and the figure solidified, a man in a tattered uniform, eyes wide with terror. Run! He bellowed, piercing through the noise that surrounded me. They want to take you. You have to escape while you still can. But just as he reached out, a shadow lunged, enveloping him in a whirlpool of darkness. His body writhed violently before being swallowed whole, the light swallowed into the void with him. No. I screamed, but the shadows stilled, indifference folding over me like a shroud. Please, help me. There must be something I can do. But the only answer was silence, pregnant with malice. The soulless eyes that confronted me took on a wicked glint, the shadows twisting and baring the jagged teeth of despair. I realized with dawning horror that they were preparing to feast. A rush of warmth surged inside me. I'd fought for my life before, but this time, as I felt the weight of generations of anguish pressing down, a choice rippled through my heart. With trembling hands, I grabbed the bat, the weight of it grounding me momentarily against the darkness. I dashed toward the nearest wall, slamming the bat against it, causing the room to shudder, crack spiderwebbing across the surface. I refuse to be a part of this. I shouted, rallying the remnants of my courage, but just then, the shadows moved with a fervor, surging to encircle me, and I realized I had awakened something far worse. As the distorted faces pushed forward with a ravenous intensity, a shrill scream echoed through the gas station, reverberating in my head, tethered to the relentless push of sound. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a glimmer, a glint from the floor behind me, where the bat had fallen. It pulsed, as if alive, pulling at my attention like a moth drawn to a flame. Embrace us, embrace your fate. The voices shrieked with malicious delight. But before I could grasp the significance of the light, I felt a cold breath against my neck, a cacophony of blackness rushing in. Time slowed as the realization crushed down upon me, whatever was waiting behind me was no longer patient, and then, in the very heartbeat of that dread, a figure stepped from the shadows, a sight so horrifying that my scream melded seamlessly into the walls of the gas station, joining the multitude of unfulfilled cries. I turned slowly, dread washing over me, and faced the newest horror, a child, pale and thin, with eyes devoid of humanity, smiling cruelly up at me. Ready to play? It whispered, as darkness pooled beneath its tiny feet, snaking forward like a hungry serpent, and in that moment, the world faded into silence, save for the sound of my shattering heart. The gas station sat across the expansive, uneasy silence of the barren highway, an island of illuminated dread amidst the vast wasteland of the night. Shadows crawled onto the walls, distorting the very fabric of the air as if something ancient and hungering inhabited the very structure. I felt it then, cold and flickering, a malevolent pulse synchronizing with my own increasingly frantic heartbeat. Let's play, the child repeated, the malicious glee resonating through the room, twisting like a knife in my gut. Its innocent facade was a masquerade for something deep and wrong. I searched its hollow eyes for a hint of mercy, but found nothing save an insatiable hunger. "I've been waiting for you. We have so much fun to have." Instinct seized my limbs, propelling me backward away from the child, but the shadow stretched, clinging to my feet as if the ground itself sought to drag me down into the void. My breaths became short, each gasp sounding like a death knell against the backdrop of its giggling, the sound curdling in my ears like spoiled milk. "Run!" The man in the uniform had bellowed, but he was gone, consumed by darkness. Panic gripped me again, and I reached for the bat, my fingers trembling as they closed around the cold metal. It felt insufficient against the horrors converging on me. "Where are you going?" The child's voice trilled, rich with twisted delight, forming a chorus of shrieks and inner whispers entangled in malicious mirth. "Don't you want to play with us?" I swung the bat toward the wall, fury fueling my desperation. It roared, splintering wood and concrete alike and breaking the hellish spell, at least for the moment. I darted toward the door, thinking only of escape with each pounding footstep, drowning in a wave of white noise, snickers, gasps, the echo of haunted laughter enveloping me. Not so fast. The child's laughter boomed, and from the shadows, hands erupted, gripping my arms and pulling me back into the storm of despair that lurked within the gas station's bowels. "No!" I screamed, muscles straining against the relentless grip. I swung my bat again, connecting with nothing but air, my heart pounding with horror, the spectre child still eluding my grasp. But there, between the flickering lights, a doorway loomed, an exit I had missed amid the chaos. The sun-baked wooden frame beckoned like a siren's call. If I could just reach it, escape this realm of nightmares, perhaps I could still find solace. I felt the fleeting grasp of hope for the first time since this hell began. As I bolted toward the door, laughter mingled with my hurried breaths. "You're going to let them down. They'll be so disappointed." The child crooned, the words seeping into my mind like poison, urging my soul to falter. Yet I pressed on, every fiber of my being screaming against the dark tide. A sudden rush of shadow, a thudding against the walls reverberated along with the child's delighted wail. "You can't escape. We are everywhere." The moment I burst through the door, I was not greeted by freedom but an unexpected wave of darkness, swallowing the world around me. I stumbled forward into blackness, the air thick and oppressive, and then it shattered into a cacophony of laughter, discordant and hideous. "Playtime isn't over." Before I could process the reality, the ground beneath me crumbled and yanked me down. An endless fall ensued, tormenting me with visions of twisted faces and haunting melodies, echoing of distant cries trapped beneath layers of agony. The child's sinister glee reverberated. "Join us." In the midst of my plummet, a flicker caught my eye, a bright rift, swirling and beckoning amidst the darkness, threatening to engulf me. With a desperate lunge, I reached for it, clinging to the hope that maybe this was my way out, perhaps a fleeting escape from the horrors that sought to drag me down forever. But just as my fingers grazed the light, the laughter shifted, turning sharp and vicious. "You won't escape this, dear one." A mighty force yanked me back. Screams splintered through my existence as I was pulled further into the abyss. Just then, shadows coalesced around me, transforming into clutching hands, dragging me along a spiraling, suffocating passage. "Welcome to the real game," they hissed, an eerie chorus rising against the backdrop of my panic, and in a calculated instant, the void exploded around me. I found myself back in the gas station, but now the walls had morphed, their surfaces pulsating with grotesque expressions. My mother's face was among them, screaming silently as shadows wove intricate patterns of pain. In that split second, drenched in terror and confusion, the familiar figure of the child materialized before me, its grin stretching impossibly wide, teeth glimmering in the whirling darkness. "Now that you're back, let's really play," it shrieked, and all at once, the shadows surged, charging toward me, leaving me frozen in fear, unable to move as madness crashing down like a wave broke the remnants of my sanity. And as I stood there, heart racing and breath hitching, I knew this time, the game wouldn't end until every soul in the gas station had lost. The gas station was no longer just a place of fear, it had transformed into a grotesque manifestation of my deepest nightmares, warping and twisting in ways I couldn't comprehend. The walls pulsated with life, flickering lights casting shadows of despair that danced around me like specters. The child stood defiantly at the center, a demonic parody of innocence, its laugh echoing through the chaos as it relished my paralyzed horror. "Look where we are." It chirped with gleeful malice, arms stretched wide as if inviting me to behold the madness. "Isn't it beautiful?" I forced myself to take a step back, the sense of alien dread thickening around me like fog. The faces in the walls merged and twisted, their mouths wide open in silent screams that pierced through the suffocating atmosphere. Among them, I recognized the stretching form of the man in the uniform, his eyes hollow and pleading. I wanted to scream, but the very air stifled my voice. "Who will you choose first?" The child asked, spinning slowly on its heels, eyes alight with manic energy. "They're all waiting to play with you." I blinked away the creeping dread, a part of me refusing to accept the horror surrounding us. "What do you want?" I croaked, each word dragging against the weight of despair. The child stopped spinning, fixing its gaze directly on me, a glimmer of something cruel dancing in its eyes. "I want you to feel what they feel." It turned and gestured at the faces, their twisted features morphing into a maelstrom of agony. With each tortured gaze, I felt a sharp pang in my chest, as if they were siphoning my own terror to fuel their curse. That I shook my head violently. "No. I won't give in to this," but the shadows flared with dark energy, and the floor beneath me trembled. A cacophony of laughter filled the space, resonating with something ancient, a chant of misery that coursed through my veins. "You can't escape playing forever. You're part of this now." The shadows thickened and began to weave together, threads of darkness pulling tighter and tighter around me. I struggled, grasping at the walls only to find my fingers sinking into flesh. The horror twisted inside me. These walls were alive, consuming my sanity as surely as they had claimed their last victim. "Pick one." The child coaxed, voice dripping with delight. It pointed at the wall, and I was drawn into its depths, mesmerized. Amidst the grotesque forms, I locked eyes with a woman I recognized. Her features are illusory, stretching in agonizing mockery. It tore a scream from my throat as the truth crashed upon me that it was my own mother, trapped within this hellish materiality. Her love turned to anguish. No. I gasped, pushing myself back, pulse racing, unable to breathe under the weight of fear and guilt. "Leave her alone," but the child only giggled, its laughter piercing through. "You can save her. Just free her like you have to free yourself." Suddenly, the shadows formed into hands once again, this time gripping my arms with an icy grip. I shouted and tugged against their hold, but they were unyielding. They dragged me forward as the child clapped its hands, entranced. "You have the power, don't you see? Just let go and play with us." I felt a swell of shame. These shadows weren't just specters, they embodied the fear I had always feared exposing. They fed on the darkest aspects of my essence, morphing my fear into twisted pleas that echoed through the gas station. Anger surfaced, sparking my fight-flight response. Without thinking, I swung the bat toward the wall, putting all my strength behind it. A thunderous crack echoed, and for a brief moment, I thought I had broken the spell. But instead of retreating, the shadows morphed, reshaping the figures into something more grotesque. "Playtime is over." The child screeched, voice hoarse and discordant, vibrating the air around us. I could feel the grip on my arms tightening until they seized my chest, constricting around my heart. My vision darkened at the edges, the weight of despair threatened to consume me. In a final desperate act, I used every ounce of energy to wrench free, feeling the malevolence subside for a heartbeat. I stole toward the flickering lights, desperate for escape, when a flash of movement caught my eye, a figure under the trembling glow at the far wall. It looked familiar. Me father, instincts surged, leading me to him. I reached out, grasping his hand. "I'm here. I can help you." Panic-stricken, I pulled, feeling the underlying heat of shadows surge beneath our grasp. But as soon as our fingers brushed, his silhouette warped, and the horrid realization struck deep: play carefully, don't let him fool you. The child's warning echoed in my ears like a mocking whisper, a sinister melody that danced around me, tightening its grip until the shadows roared with renewed hunger. With a disorienting pull, my father's form melted away, leaving only a chilling whisper against my skin. Run, and in that breath, the weight of darkness crashed down as I turned back toward the room engulfed in lamentation. The child stood still, eyes wide and glowing with perverse joy, waiting for the inevitably a sinister promise flickering just beyond the veil. Now, you really have to choose. A scream choked my throat as the shadows surged, racing toward me with wild abandon. I scrambled toward the dingy back area of the gas station, each door throbbing with foreboding, rendering the world around me a blurred nightmare, the child's laughter cascading behind me. Time for the final game. It shrieked, and as the shadows closed in, I turned, feeling the last vestiges of hope slip away, standing on the precipice of a great unknown. The ground trembled, cracked, and the walls began to bleed shadows, swallowing everything in a suffocating embrace, and then I saw Ida door marked with an unholy sigil, pulsating with an otherworldly light, standing defiantly amid the darkness, beckoning me to step forward, to face whatever lay beyond. With the child's raucous laughter ringing in my ears, I had a choice to make, but the question loomed in the air, heavy and harrowing: would I dare open it, risking everything I held dear, even my own soul? I hesitated, but the shadows would not wait, forcing me toward that door, and a voice whispered softly inside me, "Be careful what you wish for." The insistent gnaw of dread clawed at my spine as I stood before the door, its sigil like a malignant flower blooming in the darkness. The shadows writhed beneath my feet, breathing deeply, impatient for the choice that would tip the balance toward despair. My heart thundered, the echo overwhelming the din of the child's laughter, which morphed into something sinister, a chorus, joining an unidentified lament of souls trapped within the gas station's labyrinthine fold. With trembling hands, I reached for the door handle, which felt icy against my palm. My breath hitched, and for a moment, I thought I could hear another voice beneath the cacophony, soft and pleading, a sound far too familiar. "Help me," it said, a tone so unlike the malicious vibrancy resonating from the child. The anguish entwined with that word reverberated through the air, and my resolve faltered. "Open it." The child screeched, its eyes swirling with chaotic delight. "You'll never get out otherwise." A sliver of hope coursed through me, a desperate cry that crashed against the encroaching nightmare. I gripped the handle tighter, pulled it down, and took a staggering step inside. The door creaked open to reveal a room cloaked in swirling fog, the atmosphere thick and heavy like the remnants of a storm. Flickering light struggled against the encroaching darkness, revealing rows of empty shelves laden with merchandise that was nothing more than ash and bone. I swallowed hard, knowing that this twisted retail grave held the remnants of lost lives. Kilometers of history collapsed into a single desolate space. "Welcome." The child rasped, behind me, its smile unnaturally wide, mouth splitting in impossible ways that contorted reality. My legs wavered beneath me. "The others have all gone home." It giggled maniacally, the sound a break in the air, as if echoing from somewhere enormous and hollow. That I pivoted back to find the room shifting, the walls trembling as though they were alive, drawing me deeper into their embrace. I felt a pressure on my chest, forbidding me from resisting. From neither direction could I find solace, as spectral forms flickered around me. Inhabitants of the gas station twisted into grotesque reflections of their former selves. "Don't you want to play?" A ghastly figure cloaked in shadow drifted to my side, a man in a faded uniform, face obscured. But I could see the agony etched into him, fear radiating off every scarred feature. "You can save us," he croaked, a blackened hand reaching toward me. "Just let go." Ravenous despair gnawed at my heart, all the truths I held buried beneath the surface threatening to erupt. "I can't!" I screamed, stepping back, and in that moment, the darkness surged, rippling like a tide, eager to swallow the last vestiges of human spirit. "No one leaves this place," the distorted apparition hissed, flickering in and out of existence. "Not without playing the game. Not without being whole." The lights dimmed as the shadows encroached, bringing with them the oppressive laughter of unseen watchers. I could feel the intensity of their collective gaze, waiting for my reaction, hanging on the precipice of my decision. A whisper slithered through my Minda memory of laughter, warmth, joy, a life I had lost in the chaos of my past. Was this the cost? I could save them. I could save her. "Choose." The child demanded, its voice tearing deeper into my psyche. Or you'll join the others. The very walls began to pulse, warping and fitting like an undulating monster as the choices loomed before me, a tangle of faces distorted by agony, their eyelids fluttering like moths against a flame. The ghastly uniform, the mirrored shapes of lost loved ones, their silent screams twisting into an opera of despair. Pick one. Either that or suffer their torment forever. Sweat dripped down my forehead as I tilted my head, looking for answers among those tortured souls. The walls of the gas station lost their solidity, revealing dark spaces that rippled with ancient hunger. I felt their pain prickling at the edges of my senses, entreating me, beckoning me nearer. Each face skewered my heart. With familiarity, my own past flooding back the night my family dissipated into shadows that I closed my eyes, trying to block out the despair. I searched for my truth, my salvation within them. No. I shouted. I refuse, but I opened my eyes to find the laughing child had vanished. Instead, a new presence loomed from the shadows, a dark silhouette emerging slowly, breathlessly. A soft, ethereal glow illuminated its face, revealing its true likeness. You came back for me, didn't you? The entity whispered sweetly, wrapping its arms around me. Mom. My heart splintered at the sight. Not his isn't possible. But the shadows engulfed her, drawing her closer, my hope twisted into bitter reality. You shouldn't have come. Her voice faded as the laughter returned, a malicious cacophony of amusement. With a sudden jolt, I felt the icy hands of the darkness wrap around me, tugging harder. Now you have to choose. The growing whisper surged, drowning out all coherent thought as I stumbled backwards. The walls pulsated angrily, drawing nearer with each heartbeat, trapping my mother behind a veil of darkness. As I braced for an impossible choice, the flickering lights flickered one last time, revealing more monstrous forms crawling from the shadows. With eyes wide and mouths agape, they lurched toward me in a morbid dance, horrific and distorted. Now, standing on the edge of despair, their collective groans rose to shatter the air, their souls intermingling with mine as the last fragments of hope began to unravel. My mother stood trapped in the shadows, a beacon amid the nightmare, a final plea echoing in the storm's heart, save me. Everything shattered around me as the shadows roared, drawing closer, and before I had time to react, my world spun into chaos, a void swallowing all light. And just as the darkness claimed me, a deafening scream erupted from the depths, reverberating through elation and horror as I barely recognized my own voice calling out Mom. Then, everything went black, leaving only the echoes of laughter lingering, a vicious lullaby welcoming a new player into their torment. The silence that followed felt like a vacuum, a suffocating absence of sound where the echoes of despair had just thrived. I couldn't tell if I was moving, whether my limbs even obeyed me, but I felt myself drawn into the depths of a void that offered no comfort. My mother's pleading transformed into a haunting melody raked by sorrow. Help me, it cried again, a siren's call against a backdrop shimmering with malevolence. That I was caught in an abyss, and with it came the weight of time, slumping like a great stone over my back. And then, a whisper broke through the stillness, welcome back. The voice chilled me to my core. It slithered through the darkness, sliding through my awareness like smoky, a tangible thing I could still feel pulsing just beyond my reach. I was back where ID began, the gas station stretching before me unchanged. Empty shelves lined with nothingness loomed like dark giants, and flickering fluorescent lights fought a losing battle against the encroaching shadows. Choose, the voice coaxed again, echoing off the walls, and I staggered forward, my heart racing with unrelenting fear. Shadowy figures loomed at the edges, writhing and twisting, watching me, waiting. Faces emerged, demons of my past mixed with those I'd never known. Terrified eyes, mouths agape in a scream that never arrived. Their silent anguish knitted itself into a web of despair around me. Suddenly, the laughter returned, maniacal, unending, clanging like rusty bells in a forgotten chapel. I followed the sound to a flicker of movement. The child stood at the far end of the room, now framed in a halo of spectral light, an entity both young and ancient wrapped in an unholy guise. Its form rippled like heat off asphalt, and I shivered at the sight. Did you miss me? It whispered, its voice oily and sweet, crawling under my skin. You can't escape us, let them go. I cried out, desperation clawing at every nerve. "You don't have to keep them here," the child only giggled, a sound that echoed through the hollow spaces of my heart, piercing through the shadows to dredge up the rawness of my memories, a warped carousel of innocence lost. "But they want to play, just like you." "Hick," it said, bouncing with unfettered glee, a distorted reflection of joy and malice that I felt a deep stirring behind me. Figures emerged from the darkness, drawing nearer. One was a woman, hair wild and eyes wide with urgent despair. Another was the uniformed man from before, his mouth trembling as he gestured toward a dark corner behind him. "Help me," the woman pleaded, her voice a whisper threaded through the growing fog. "You have the power. You can end this," but the prices each voice whispered were horrors I was not ready to confront. What if I'm choosing the wrong one? I murmured desperately to myself. A flicker of movement caught my eye. It was my mother again, her face twisted in a ripple of anguish. "Why do you hesitate?" she cried, shadows licking at her unearthly form. "You know what you must do." The air grew heavy, pinching my lungs. I was being ripped apart by the weight of their expectations, their glances piercing me like daggers of shame. Every choice I could make brought with it the harrowing echoes of their lives, a tormenting burden wrapping tighter around my chest. "I don't want to choose," I screamed, but the shadows answered through a wail of voices, doubling back in cacophonous agony. "Everyone must choose," they screamed in unison, voices melding into a dissonant symphony of suffering that rattled the foundations of my very spirit. Behind my back, the space felt alive, breathed, writhed, and twisted as if the gas station itself had emerged from slumber, hungry for fresh despair. I glanced over my shoulder. A sweep of dark arms extended toward me, the faces sliding closer, the pain and fear coiling around me like snakes. "Join us," a chorus begged, the lines of each visage blurring together, forming a tapestry of torment interwoven with my own fears. Save Heron. That fleeting moment, I saw something flicker at the corner of my vision, a massive hand, jagged fingertips stretching into the gloom. Tendrils of darkness snaked into and out of it, and the grip it held was a promise of engulfment, of unending night. But before the horror could fully settle, the laughter morphed into a morbid wail as the child bounded closer, now only inches away. "You will decide," it effused, eyes gleaming with a manic hunger. "Or we will take your soul instead." With that, the grotesque spectacle exploded into chaos. The shadows swirled and raged, the floor quaked beneath my feet, and from somewhere deep within the heart of the gas station, I felt an ancient anger stirring. An infernal pulse thrummed through every corner, and just as I considered reaching for the flickering light at the room's edge, the shadows recoiled violently, revealing what lay behind them. A monstrous figure, monstrous in size and fury, breaking free from its confines. Its eyes, ancient and fathomless, locked onto mine. "You are to choose now," it growled, a storm of rage seeping through its words. "Or be condemned to the dark for eternity with the others." My heart raced, and I opened my mouth to scream, to refuse. But the words wouldn't come, swallowed whole by the echoing roar of despair that filled the gas station and echoed through the ages. Just as that infernal figure lunged forward, the flickering lights shattered, plunging me into a visceral darkness where time became irrelevant, and the suffocating silence was ripped apart by a single chilling whisper. "Your choice shall seal your fate." The darkness was suffocating, wrapping around me like an eager predator. My heart pounded like a drum, a frantic warning in a world where the rules of time and space seemed to fray. I struggled against the darkness pressing in, expecting at any moment to feel the monstrous figure's icy breath on my neck or its claws raking through the ether, ready to drag me down. Fumbling, I turned to face the child, who now stood merely a breath away, laughter choked and mingling with something almost sorrowful. It raised a small, delicate hand, beckoning me closer, its smile an unsettling mix of mischief and malice. "But you have to choose first," it sang, voice echoing in the silence, each note piercing through the thick air that I was torn, an uneasy shroud of vulnerability tightening around my bones. What did it want from me? What did this entire place want? My eyes darted back to the writhing figures, their expressions morphing as if fueled by my uncertainty, fear swirling between them like a noxious fog. "Choose," they urged, voices overlapping in a melange that clawed at my sanity. I closed my eyes, the emotional gravity of their despair gripping me, suffocating me. My thoughts spiraled in a seething chaos as I felt the weight of their lives settle onto my soul. Choices they could not make or were denied culminated in a horrifying reality. Suddenly it changed. The air thickened, thick like a grotesque potion, swirling around as if the very essence of the gas station had come alive. The cabinets began to rattle, and from within the depths of the dark, something slithered out, long, sinuous shapes writhing like snakes hungry for flesh. The shelves trembled and books tumbled to the ground, pages exploding open, their words shrieking in despair as they scattered like lost souls. Why do you give in to such fear? The child's voice cooed, laced with an odd sweetness that twisted with an undercurrent of danger. It was as if it found joy in my suffering, a cruel spectator in this unfolding nightmare. Fear can be a powerful ally. I forced my gaze back to the figures, desperate to discern the faces behind their morose expressions, their anguish becoming palpable, expanding like a film across the walls around me. Each flicker of light from the broken bulbs cast staccato shadows that danced like marionettes, swirling nightmares barreling towards my mind. Choose. The monstrous voice boomed, resonating like thunder, echoing against the walls of this post-apocalyptic purgatory. Your hesitation feeds the darkness. Make your decision, or I will claim what remains. Darkness clawed its way forward as the flickering lights mutated into winking eyes, 100 terrified souls imploring for compassion. Shivers coursed through me, anger mixed with agony and the weight of their collective desperation wrapped tighter around my spirit, but it was overwhelming. I wouldn't let it swallow me whole. I can't. I screamed, tilting my head back as if the cavernous ceiling could offer me solace. I can't choose. As those words left my lips, the chaos erupted anew. The ground trembled beneath me, and I was unbalanced, lost. From the far corner of the gas station, a flicker of ambient light caught my attention, a doorway, outlined in an ethereal glow. My breath hitched. The tension from the shadows shifted, momentarily released as whispers swelled into an anxious hush. Not that door. The child's laughter soured, morphing into a sound laced with fury. The shadows lunged toward it, emissaries of the deepest nightmares, swirling, grasping. Time splintered around me, and I hesitated, the urge to flee warring with the screeching demands to choose, to condemn. The monstrous figure, now creeping closer, sniffed the air as if tasting my indecision, a predatory gleam in its endless eyes. Your soul is far more valuable than the others, it rasped, each syllable dripping with malice. Choose wisely. That I edged toward the radiant glow, heart racing, cold sweat trickling down my spine. It could be my escape, a chance to break free from the suffocating shadows. But what lay beyond that door? And was I truly ready to abandon them all? My foot moved before my mind registered, stepping toward that glimmering light, but as I reached for the doorknob, the room erupted into sonic chaos. The walls contorted as the shadows howled in unison, a piercing cacophony of lost souls' cries. Tendrils of rage lashed out, darting through the air. No! They screamed, and the darkness surged, breaking free of its restraints. That I froze, terror solidifying in my veins as the shadows twisted into storm clouds, the child's laughter now a screeching siren in the expanding chaos. The figure loomed taller still, its form breaking apart the spectrum of shadows around it. Your choice may be made only to seal your fate. It cried, and as I took a step back, a flood of darkness erupted toward me, and in that blinding moment when I made my choice, the world shattered, and the gas station quaketh. Horrors yet untold swallowed me whole, silence forging my terrified scream into the depths of the void. But the eye of the storm opened suddenly, terror bursting back to life around me, a specter clawing its way from the depths of my worst fears, cloaked in remnants of the past. The truth I had been running from now hurtled straight toward me with malicious intent. As the piercing shadows reached for my soul, I could hear the voice of my mother again, stronger this time, wrenching the words from my very being. Join them. What was her choice? What was mine? And suddenly, from within the deepest recess of that engulfing darkness, yet another whisper reached me. It wasn't just a sound but a command, resolute and powerful. Choose, her or yourself. That I in that instance, the reality around me fractured, and I plunged deeper into the abyss, my heart echoing the question that would forever haunt me. Which one will it be? The gas station loomed before me again, an eternal harbinger of the nightmare that had entwined my existence. The flickering neon sign cast ghastly shadows against the pavement, a distorted echo of the unsettling events that transpired just moments ago. I staggered inside, my lungs heavy with the stench of despair mixed with gasoline. The child waited for me, its smile almost sweet and unnatural curve distorted by the abyss that surrounded us. Choose, it sang, voice dripping with malice. Will it be her, or will it be yourself? The shadows shifted around me, curling like sentient vines, ready to ensnare. Every phantom face twisted grotesquely in the dim light, pleading for salvation, each distorted visage a reminder of my past failures. The figures lurked at the edges of my vision, lost souls who had been caught in this horrific playground. I tried to remember them, but their identities blurred into a whirlpool of anguish. The choices weighed on me like weights around my ankles, dragging me into the murky depths once more. Sudden flashes of memory flooded my mind, my mother, fierce with love, my father, a gentle giant whose laughter throbbed with warmth. The lives spiraled into oblivion, swallowed by the very darkness I was now part of. Choose. Choose. The child danced, laughter mingling with sorrow, each beat of its glee hammering against the walls of my sanity. Now. Their time is running out. Which one, indeed? The voice thundered through the abyss, the monstrous figure stepping closer, the air charged with an oppressive force. I could feel the weight of the choice like a heavy stone in my gut, the suffocating pressure of doom pressing against my chest as I fought for clarity. But deep down, I felt the shadows growing restless, a living force that rumbled with ancient hunger. Join them, they hissed, their whispers rolling over me like waves lapping at a shore, each syllable a claim on my dwindling hope. My heart raced, and I began to tremble, my instincts screaming to flee. I want choose. I cried, though the resolve in my voice cracked, splintering beneath the suffocating wrath. I want. An uproar of pain and relief rippled through the crowd of tortured souls, bent and broken, eyes wide with a flicker of recognition. I stumbled backward as the shadows surged around me, mouths opening wide in silent screams that echoed through the void, angels of despair. Then, amidst the swirling darkness, I saw Hermie Mother, her form flickering in and out of focus, still caught in the clutches of the soul-thirsty shadows. Please, she whispered, the words tearing through the haze of indecision. Help me. The collapsing weight in my chest surged. In that moment, I had the distinct realization the truth clanged like a gong against the darkness surrounding me. This was not simply a choice of sacrifice. It was a choice I had long struggled against. To save her meant to confront the echoing fear I had harbored since childhood, fear of losing those I loved, fear of failing them. My throat tightened as the realization dawned. You can't take her. You can't take me. My voice broke through the cacophony, rising from the putrid depths of despair like a phoenix defying death. Join us. The shadows barked, fiercely alive, closing in as I staggered, desperate to reclaim control over my own destiny, and then, I saw a door marked with the unholy sigil, glowing and pulsating in the dim gloom, a euphoric beacon against the crushing pull of despair. A flicker of courage ignited within me. Maybe I could save her and myself by defying this twisted game that I choose myself, I pronounced, louder than before, strength surging in every syllable. The laughter ceased abruptly, replaced by a horrible stillness. The shadows quaked, and the monstrous figure froze, pondering my claim with liquid eyes that absorbed light as if it was wine. What had I unleashed? The darkness rippled, vibrating with rage, and the child at the center recoiled, eyes widening. You fool! You think you can escape? It screeched, the mirth evaporating from its voice. The gas station shuddered, walls bending. Inward, shadows twisting chaotically, desperate to reclaim me, a thrumming heartbeat of the ancient malevolence that had inhabited this cursed realm, hungry for my essence. In a swift movement, I dashed toward the door, the sigil glowing brighter with every step, the light flaring as if it knew my intentions. The very ground beneath me roared in fury, and the shadows lunged, long fingers of darkness snapping at my heels, desperate to drag me back into their fold, but I did not falter, with everything surging within me, I flung the door open wider, feeling the light engulf me, its warmth soothing the remnants of my own past terrors. As I crossed the threshold, I felt an ethereal warmth envelop me, a tear in reality cracking wide open. Behind me, the gas station splintered into nothingness, shadows howling in protest, and in that final moment, a piercing scream broke through the veil. The face of my mother contorted in anguish, pleading for me not to leave her behind. But as I stepped into the light, I realized the tragic twist. Her gaze morphed into one of rage and despair, revealing the truth that chilled me. She had chosen the darkness long before, surrendering to the shadows that devoured her, and now, as the threshold buried me deeper into the light and escape from my own torment, I wrapped my hands around the truth like something solid, a weapon of protection. I was freeing myself from the depths of horror, leaving behind what would forever haunt me. That I in that fleeting moment, as I stepped into the unknown, I finally understood I could not save her, but perhaps, in plucking the last thread binding my destiny to this gas station, I could stave off the shadows that had devoted their malevolence to me. Yet, the whispers still echoed in my ears, resounding into infinity. A chorus that would never be silenced. Join us. The haunting whispers trailed after me as the darkness receded behind the threshold, vowing that I could not escape what I had become. And as the light swallowed me whole, one chilling thought nagged at the fringes of my mind. Perhaps you can never truly leave the things you choose to forget.